Welcome class to Mrs. Lamort's Show Me. Today we will be talking about Mary Shelley and her famous novel Frankenstein. Let's start out with Shelley first. She was born Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin to a political philosopher father and a feminist mother. That is her picture. Her life spanned from 1797 to 1851. She lived for 53 years, a long enough life to write novels that would be popular for centuries. She was born at the time where Romanticism was at its peak, so I guess that's why she was a romantic author rather than a Renaissance one. With her mother's death right after her birth and her father being busy with work, Mary Shelley was pretty much forced to spend her entire childhood reading books solitarily in her father's giant library. Her father did, however, get remarried, but her stepmother completely hated her, so that did not help at all. Later in life, she began a romantic relationship with her father's married disciple, Percy Jackson. No, I meant Percy Shelley, not the lightning thief, but how should I say this? A chastity thief, more like, for he impregnated her when she was only 16 years old. That is his face right there, the chastity thief. The two ran away from home, got married, and started their writing careers to sustain themselves despite the objection from Mary Shelley's father. Mary Shelley started to write one of her greatest novel, Frankenstein, when she was just 18, and had it published anonymously in 1818, when she was 20 years old. She later wrote Matilda in 1819, Valperga in 1823, The Last Man in 1826, and many more. The primary reason that got Mary Shelley to start writing Frankenstein was a challenge from Lord Byron directed toward Shelley and her husband in order to find out who could write the best horror story. In the novel Frankenstein, Mary Shelley incorporated the ideas of melancholy, the return to nature, and the supernatural element from the Romantic period into one of the best horror story of all time. Let's talk about melancholy for now. Now, a dark and melancholic tone is not a staple within the mainstream of Romanticism. But because of its popularity in certain works of literature, it had created for itself a subgenre within Romanticism called Gothic Romanticism. The literary works of British Gothic Romanticism, similar to their American Dark Romanticism counterpart, usually contain the element of gloomy, decaying settings, supernatural beings, and a tragic ending. The dark and dreary tone of Frankenstein came from the misfortune that Shelley experienced throughout her life. Death and insecurity shrouded Shelley's life, ranging from the suicide of her half-sister, the death of her mother, to her being disowned by her father. I guess the message that Shelley was trying to imply is that the absolute comfort and perhaps happiness can only be found through death. This was evident with the death of Victor Frankenstein after the entire course of the story, where he failed miserably in killing the monster and achieving happiness. Humans are irrational creatures by nature. They yearn for the non-empirical and the spiritual, all of which can be found within Mother Nature. My throat is so dry. I need a sip of water. Mrs. Lamort, please take over for me for 2 minutes.
Let's talk about nature and science exploration. So, nature science exploration. There's a return to nature to be comforted. It's a very romantic, not romantic as in I love you, romantic as in time period, ideal. It's strange because Victor is science and the monster is unnatural. So we have this return to nature to be comforted, but are we comforted by the monster? Not so much. Next thought is nature versus science. Noticing my views and ours are the same. Science is unnatural. The monster throws nature into a state of imbalance. He causes destruction of the whole family. So with this science that is unnatural, the whole state of everything is set apart. Think about this in terms of Walton. This is a frame tale, right? We have a story within a story. That's a frame tale. This frame tale is a warning to Walton as he's probing too dangerously close to discovering nature's secrets at the North Pole. That's why in the end, well, you know what happens at the end.
Alright, thank you Mrs. Lamort. Guys, let's clap for her presentation. I will continue from here. In the novel Frankenstein, Shelley described nature as like an elixir of life, like a God-given therapy that can cure all sorts of illnesses. When Victor was overcome with grief from the death of his brother, he, I quote, shunned the face of man and took the boat upon the water to weep himself out of despair. Page 182. Now, let's talk about one of the most essential elements to Romanticism, that is, the rejection of science. The enlightened science back then generally focused on the idea of finding out the secret of life and taking control over it. Romanticists, like Shelley, were completely against the development and advancement of science. To them, repeating what Mrs. Lamort said, science, the supernatural, will disrupt the balanced state of nature, and that the desire for knowledge will lead to disaster. Mary Shelley got her influence for the creation of the monster from nothing else but science. The monster was made up from used human body parts. This is Shelley's way of speaking out against scientists who were stealing and buying dead bodies from grave robbers to try and bring them back to life. She mentioned of how the monster took his first breath of life after Victor applied a bit of electricity. This was a reference to Luigi Galvani's study on how electricity could control the nervous systems of animals. I think that writing about the monster's hideous look and and horrible deeds is Shelley's way of saying that the disturbance of nature is dangerous and it carries with it many hidden consequences. I think that concludes my presentation on Mary Shelley and Frankenstein. And since we have quite some time left, let's do a quiz segment. These are not multiple choices and were designed to check whether or not you were paying attention. I will give you guys, around 10 seconds for each question. Please write them down on a sheet of paper. Question number 1. What was Shelley's full name before she was married? The answer is Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin. Question number 2. What is the name of her husband? Answer: the chastity thief, or as some people call him, Percy Shelley. Number 3. In what year was Frankenstein written? The novel Frankenstein was written in the year of 1818. 4. Name some of the characteristics of Gothic Romanticism. The answer to this question is the dreary and melancholic tone, the gloomy and decaying settings, the supernatural beings, and the tragic endings. Question number 5. What material was the monster made of? The monster was created from used human body parts. 6. Who was the scientist who studied the effect of electricity on the nervous system? His name is Luigi Galvani. And lastly, by what means did scientists back then obtain dead bodies for research? The scientists back then either bought the dead bodies from grave robbers or stole the bodies themselves. So, how many of these 7 questions did you get right? Did anyone get 100%? I really hope that my presentation will help you guys on the upcoming tests. Thank you for your undivided attention.